You're gonna see it right there. Top right, Bob said. It comes on screen, and it's right there in full view on its way out to the fields. I leaned in, watching the screen intently, and Bob sat beside me, almost expectant. Bob had been one of the men who'd come forward when I started this job. I was told he had some video footage of the creature I was supposed to be hunting, after it had attacked some of the livestock on its ranch. I had some doubts that this was actually the creature I was looking for, since most of the last several guys who'd come forward had only led me to a dead end. But this one was different. Something loped into view from the top right corner, although it was hard to say exactly what that something was. The black and white footage wasn't great. It looked a little bit like a mountain lion, although there was too much off about it to be a mountain lion. For starters, this thing seemed to have wings, like a bug, and it was a lot bigger than any mountain lion I'd ever seen. Then, of course, there was its face. It was hard to make it out clearly on the footage, but that face looked almost human. Hell, more than human. It looked just like Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks? I asked, as I sat in a restaurant with Dr. Josiah Parsons 2 weeks ago. You're seriously sending me after Tom Hanks? A clone of Tom Hanks, Parsons corrected. A clone of... Are you actually serious right now? Why the fuck would you clone Tom Hanks? What possible scientific purpose would that even serve? Seriously. I half expected Dr. Parsons to crack a smile or even laugh, but he maintained a completely stoic facade. Oh, God. This wasn't a joke, was it? It was a project we funded several years back, he said. A precursor to the project that created the last creature you killed for us, actually. The goal was to produce human organs that could be transplanted to patients in need, although most of the actual research for this iteration of the project was carried out by another party. And my understanding is that the samples they used were contaminated. Great. So, how exactly did they go from growing organs in a vat to cloning Tom Hanks? I asked. The samples they used came from an even earlier version of the project that had gotten its funding through promising exclusivity to celebrity donors. If I recall correctly, the team wanted to clone one live specimen to ensure that what they were creating was viable. And since the samples they had came from celebrity donors, they cloned Tom Hanks. I finished. Dr. Parsons nodded. Unfortunately, they didn't realize that some of the samples they'd been using had been modified by the team that originally procured them. Apparently, their predecessors were trying to cut corners by genetically modifying the samples. And when a clone created using one of these samples was allowed to mature, it became something else. A hybrid. Not human, not animal, not fey, and yet still, Tom Hanks. I just stared blankly at Dr. Parsons. Part of me was still convinced that he was fucking with me. And this is a real thing, right? I asked. Not like some kind of joke? I recognize that this situation is ridiculous, but this is the situation we currently find ourselves in, Parsons said. So you're sending me out to Arizona to go and hunt a mutant clone of Tom Hanks. I was still trying to wrap my head around this and failing miserably. Not a mutant, no, he clarified. A Tom Hanks Chimera. Of course. A Tom Hanks Chimera. Important distinction, I said. If the decision were mine, I would not have authorized such a project, Parsons said with a sigh. And frankly, I'm surprised they didn't immediately shut down the project the instant they noticed something was wrong with their specimen. But that's neither here nor there. Most of the people responsible for the catastrophic mismanagement of that project are dead now. And now only the mess remains. Your job is to clean it up. Find the creature, subdue it, and have it brought back to me for study. Study? I repeated. You don't want me to kill it? It's more valuable to me alive, Parsons replied. Your last target needed to be eliminated. This one isn't quite as dangerous when unprovoked. It's been content to avoid people for the last several years. Make no mistake, it will still try to kill you if engaged, but there's a much lower risk of collateral here. Right, I said unenthusiastically. So, how exactly am I supposed to drag the Tom Hanks Chimera out of the desert when I find it? I have a contact for you in Arizona, Parsons said. Lucas Van Coverden. He's a member of the Brethren, and quite an accomplished one at that. Lucas Van Coverden. I recognized that name, although I'd never met the man before. They called him the Arizona Ranger, and I was a little surprised to hear him pop up in conversation. Last I'd heard, he'd either been killed or maimed. Maybe that wasn't true. Or maybe he'd simply recovered. He and his team will provide you with any support that you need, Parsons said. Any further questions? I thought about asking about Lucas, but I figured I'd get the answers from the man himself soon enough. None so far, I said. I'll contact you if anything comes to mind, though. Excellent. I've emailed the relevant documents over to you, so please go through them on your way to Flagstaff. And remember, I need this one alive. I didn't expect the creature to actually look like Tom Hanks, but somehow it did. The footage I was watching it on wasn't even that great, but there was no mistaking it. This thing actually had the face of Tom fucking Hanks. Passed the camera on the way out to the fields, he said. Killed 2 of my cows. Dragged one of the bodies off. I don't suppose you ever found out where? I asked hopefully. Not far. Just out past that hill on the west side of the property. Found the carcass out that way a day later. Any footprints? I asked. Signs of where it might have gone? Bob just shook his head. None, he said. Damn thing slipped away into the night. Great. Well, can I trouble you for a copy of this footage? And anything else you might have from that night? Yeah, sure thing. Just give me half a second, I'll get that on a USB for you, Bob said, and I let him putter around for a while I examined the footage again, studying the creature as it skulked past the camera. For a moment, its shiny eyes glanced into the lens, staring at me through the screen, and I felt myself shudder a little. I've dealt with a lot of monsters before, but this thing seemed like something else entirely. I left Bob's ranch about 15 minutes later, and headed back to the motel room I'd gotten for myself. Once there, I went through the footage again, before emailing it over to Lucas's team and skimming through the rest of the footage that Bob had given me. There wasn't much to see. Whatever this thing was, it was crafty. It was almost as if it knew to avoid the cameras, which implied some disturbing things about its intelligence. About 5 minutes later, I got a message on my phone. Ted's Diner. 5 minutes. The message had come from Lucas and his team. It had come just after another message from Gary, the man I'd met back in San Francisco. Hope you're doing all right. Thinking of you. I ignored his message, just as I had the last few, and responded to Lucas. I told him I'd be there. Closed up my laptop and slipped it into my bag before heading out. Ted's wasn't far away. I could walk there in about 5 minutes. And walk there I did. The diner was mostly empty when I arrived, save for a few old-timers sitting by the counter watching TV and 3 figures near the back. Those 3 figures were the ones I was looking for, and they stood out like a sore thumb. Namely because they all wore cowboy hats for some reason. I mean, I know they called themselves the Arizona Rangers, but they could have at least tried to be a little more subtle about it. The first was a red-faced woman with squinting eyes, drinking a black coffee and squinting at me. This was Catherine Oak. And she carried herself with the swagger of someone who had something to prove. Which, to be fair, she probably did. There aren't a lot of women working for the Brethren, since most of the higher-ups don't think they're cut out for it. But I guess Oak was just tough enough to make the cut. Sitting across from her in the booth was Duke Thomas, a large hunk of solid muscle with wraparound shades and a wild man beard. He was dressed a little more casually than members of the Brethren usually were, with a Confederate flag t-shirt that read, "Keep it flying." But neither of them were anywhere near as interesting as the man beside Oak, the original Arizona Ranger himself, Lucas Van Coverden. At a glance, I would have thought he was just some dipshit trying to look cool. He was dressed in a dark overcoat and dark sunglasses, as if he was trying to look edgy, hiding his face like some kind of mysterious anime villain. And, technically, that was what he was trying to do. Only, it was less out of an innate desire to be an edgelord, and more for practical reasons. Looking at him up close, it was very clear that there was something horribly wrong with this man's body. I'd heard rumors that Lucas had been killed last year. It turns out, those rumors were only half true. Lucas wasn't dead, but someone had royally fucked him up. His skin was warped and leathery, as if it had been burned. His breathing was raspy and wet-sounding. A nasal cannula encircled his head, feeding him oxygen to help him breathe. And I could see its tank under the table by his legs, which were clearly prosthetics. Expensive-looking prosthetics, but prosthetics all the same. Behind his sunglasses, I knew that he had no eyes. Not real ones, at least. Only two glass, soulless orbs that looked more like a doll's eyes. I didn't know exactly what had happened to him, and I wasn't inclined to ask either. But he looked like someone had set him on fire and then tried to put him out by beating him to death with a shovel. Lucas didn't seem to even look in my direction as I joined them at the booth, taking a seat beside Duke. Although, he did speak to me. "Is that Daniel?" he asked. "Yeah, it is. I take it you saw the footage I sent?" "Duke and Oak have. Me? Well..." His head turned toward me. "Right," I said quietly. "Sorry." "I'm aware of what's on the footage. A confirmed sighting. Very useful." "It's the first solid proof we've gotten this thing is in the area," I said. "And based on the footage and the more credible stories we've got, I'm pretty confident we can determine what our search zone looks like." "Good," Lucas replied. "And how soon can you have that for us?" "We can go through it right now," I offered, before reaching into my bag for a local map. "If you got the time." "Daniel, I've got nothing but time," Lucas said. Both Duke and Oak were watching me intently. "Right. So, here's what we got so far." I took out a marker and circled 6 points on the map. Now, obviously that rancher I spoke to today, their story checked out. Same with 5 others I've heard over the past several days. There's at least 6 confirmed eyewitnesses out of 23 possible witnesses, all in this area. I drew a circle around the area encompassing all 6 confirmed witnesses. Each of them indicated the same thing, that this creature came from the west. It's consistent in that regard. It comes from the west, comes into town to hunt. "You know, there's a whole hell of a lot of desert west of here," Duke huffed. "West ain't really narrowing it down." "It doesn't when you put it that way," I said, mildly irate. "We've checked the surrounding towns. None of them have any reports of this thing. It's not moving around. It's staying in one place and hunting there. I figure that means wherever it's hiding, it's relatively close. I'm thinking less than 20 miles outside of town close." "That's still a lot of ground to cover," Oak pointed out. "Yeah, it is. Fortunately, we're out in the desert. There's not a lot of places for something this big to hide out here. And if we can get our hands on a list of caves in the area, old mine shafts, places where this thing could hide out during the day while remaining relatively undisturbed. Oak gave a nod. So we start searching, she said. Getting airborne might be the best way to go about this, Lucas chimed in. We can assist with that. You can get us airborne? I asked. Dr. Parsons has assured me we will have every resource we need to ensure our success. Chartering a helicopter shouldn't be an issue, he said. Oak, could you make those arrangements? You bet, she said. Good. It should make the search go faster. Then we can finally catch this damn thing and be done with this mess. Sometimes, life takes you to some strange places, and you just gotta accept and appreciate that. For example, I never thought I'd find myself in a helicopter hunting Tom Hanks in the Mojave Desert. But, lo and behold, there I was. We spent the better part of the afternoon going over the area I'd indicated was the most likely habitat range for Tom Hanks. Oak had been good enough to provide us a map of some of the local mines and caves, which we passed by first. We circled the area, looking for some sign of the creature. Although identifying what was and what wasn't a sign wasn't easy. I told Duke that we'd know it when we saw it. And in some ways, I was right. We found the bodies about 100 feet away from one of the abandoned mines that Oak had on her map. It was hard to clearly ID them from the air, but we were at least sure that they weren't human, and an hour after we landed, we drove back out to the mine in an SUV to take a closer look. Mule deer, Duke said, as he stood over one of the bodies. These ain't fresh kills either. Yeah, no shit, Oak replied. She'd made a point to stand away from the smell. Looks like this one was dragged here, Duke noted. And there's other drag marks too. He got up, tracing them along the ground before looking over toward the mine. There. Well, that's promising, I said quietly. Very. Let's go get the gear out of the trunk, go in there, and take this fucking thing down. Duke turned and headed for the SUV again before I stopped him. Wait. Hold on a second. You're planning on going in there? Yeah. Hunt it down, that's the job, he said, a little annoyed. You're joking. This thing is smart enough to avoid getting caught on camera, and you want to go into a dark, labyrinthian mine looking for it? That's the job, Duke repeated. Look, if you want to stay out here, then you do that. I'm gonna hunt the goddamn monster. On its own turf, I said. I'm not saying we're not gonna hunt it, but this thing is clearly intelligent. Do you really want to fight it in the dark when it's got a home field advantage? Duke just stared at me like a complete fucking idiot. I'm intelligent too, he said. It ain't human. It's just another animal. I mean, it kinda is human, Oak pointed out, coming over to join us. It's got human DNA. And Danny's right. This thing's smart. Well, what the hell do you want us to do then? Duke asked. Let's just play it smart, alright? I said. What we've got here is something that likes to hunt. So what's the obvious solution here? We hunt it, Duke said. God, he was stupid. No, we give it something to hunt. There's ranchers around here. We buy ourselves a cow, we put it out, and we let this thing take the bait. Get what I'm saying? Oak was nodding, and Duke seemed to be finally understanding where I was coming from. Yeah, that ought to do it, Oak said. Give it something to hunt, and ambush it when it takes the bait. Exactly. Now let's get us a cow. The cow paced uneasily around the space where we'd left it, mooing occasionally as it tried to break free from the metal post we tied it to. It kept pulling at the rope, trying to break free, as if it knew just why we left it out here. Honestly, its desperation made me feel a little bad for it. It kind of reminded me of those slaughterhouse videos you sometimes see. They're never going to stop me from eating meat, but They're harrowing as hell to watch, as the bitter reminder that your steak was once a living thing is violently hammered into your brain. Duke, Oak, and I sat watching it from a hill about 200 feet away as the sun set before us. The desert was almost peaceful as night set in, and while Duke kept an eye on the cow, I let my eyes wander elsewhere. I could see cars driving past on a distant highway, headlights cutting through the growing shadows, illuminated against an ocean of dirt and brush. By the road stood a massive billboard that read, "Shackled by lust? Jesus sets free." There was a tranquility here. This place felt so far away from the rest of the world, and yet so close to it at the same time. I could almost see why the creature chose to live here, and for a moment, I wondered if it sometimes sat and watched the passing cars. I wondered if it was able to lament its own lost humanity. I watched the road for a bit longer, and as I did, I thought I noticed something standing by the sign. No, not something. Someone. For a moment, I was almost sure that there was a person standing under that sign, and I was sure that they were looking at me. "Hey, Duke, can you pass the binoculars?" I asked. "Yeah, sure." He handed them over to me, and I took a closer look at the shape by the sign. But whatever it was that I'd seen, it was gone now. "What's up?" Duke asked. I lowered the binoculars. "Nothing. Never mind." I shook my head and handed the binoculars back. The air smelled a little more like ozone than it had before, although even that ozone smell felt off. It was gone almost as quickly as it appeared, but the feeling of being watched didn't fade away quite as quickly. "I see some movement," Duke said quietly, and I was torn away from my thoughts. I looked up towards the entrance of the mine. Duke offered me the binoculars again, and I took them, watching as a shape crept out from the mine entrance. The cow was completely panicking now, bucking wildly as it struggled to escape, and its cries only seemed to entice the creature stalking it. "I'll get a shot lined up," Oak said, readying the rifle she was holding. That rifle had enough tranquilizer in it to put down a grizzly bear. We'd expected it to be appropriate to put Tom Hanks down for a nap. We waited, watching in silence as Tom Hanks crept closer to the cow. I saw his head rise up as he studied his surroundings. When he finally decided that the coast was clear, his cat-like body tensed up like a coil, before he suddenly lunged out for the cow. I heard it cry out, saw it struggle, but it couldn't escape, and death came quickly. Tom Hanks pounced on it, tackling it to the ground before sinking his mandibles into its throat. His claws tore at its stomach, splitting the cow open as if it were made of paper, and turning the animal into a twitching, butchered mess in mere seconds. We watched as he sifted through the organs, before beginning to eat. It seemed as if he was starting with the heart. "I've got a shot," Oak said quietly. "Take it," I said. The gun fired, and I saw Tom Hanks' head shoot up. His shiny eyes were momentarily illuminated by the headlights of a distant car, but I had few doubts that he was looking at us. "That's a hit," Oak said, but kept her rifle aimed at Tom Hanks, waiting to see if he'd run toward us or run away. He chose to run away, keeping low and racing back towards the entrance of the mine. "Shit, he's gonna go back into hiding," Duke snarled, before turning and racing down the far side of the hill toward our parked SUV. "Duke, what the hell are you doing?" I demanded, getting up to watch as he took off. I felt a spike of panic in my chest as that big dumb oaf got behind the wheel of the car and the engine roared to life. No, he seriously wasn't going to try to chase this thing down. This pig-headed idiot couldn't be that stupid. Could he? Yes Yes, he could. The SUV tore away from us, speeding toward the mine, with Oak and I watching in a mixture of horror and disbelief. "That goddamn idiot's gonna get himself killed," she murmured. "Even if that trank did the trick, there ain't no way that damn thing is out yet." "Stay here. Cover us. I'm gonna go and get him," I said, taking off down the hill in pursuit of the SUV. Oak just gave a tense nod and watched as I took off running towards the mine entrance. I could already see Duke getting out. He went into the back seat to take out a shotgun we kept in there. I watched him load it and yelled for him to stop, only to get ignored. I'm not sure if he couldn't hear me, or if he really was just that fucking bullheaded. Shotgun in hand, the idiot boldly walked into the mine that Tom Hanks had retreated into, and by that point, I think I already knew that his life was forfeit. I stopped running, my lungs burning for air as Duke happily marched towards certain death. And at this point, I wondered if it was even worth it to try to stop him. I mean, at some point, natural selection just has to kick in, right? Some people truly were just too dumb to live, and I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to risk my ass on a man who proudly wore a Confederate flag shirt in public. Although, with that said, if I didn't follow him in and just wrote him off as a lost cause, I knew I'd lose sleep over it. Duke was a complete and utter moron, and he really did seem like a garbage human being, even by the Brethren's admittedly kind of low standards. But when I looked inside myself and asked, "Can I leave this idiot to die?" the answer was, unfortunately, no. So, with a sigh of frustration, I continued on towards the SUV. I popped the trunk to grab another shotgun, and took out my phone to call Oak. She answered on the first ring. "Danny, what are you doing?" "I'm gonna see if I can get that idiot out before he gets himself killed," I replied. "You're going in after him?" Oak asked skeptically. "Not a great idea. That thing in there's gonna be pissed off, and it's gonna have the home field advantage." "Yeah, I know," I replied. "At this point, I'm only hoping that tranquilizer did the trick. That's an awfully steep bet." "Yep, but it's the bet I gotta make right now. Call Lucas and get him to send in some backup. Even if the trank worked, we're gonna need extra hands to get this thing out." "Right, will do," Oak said. "Watch your ass in there, Danny." "You got it." I hung up on her and gave a wave in her direction before turning and staring into the mouth of the mine. Old, unstable-looking wooden support stretched into the darkness, promising moderate protection from a cave-in, although making my feet move forward to actually take me into the mine was difficult. At the end of the day, I was still just a mortal man, and every self-preservation instinct I had told me not to take another step forward. But I ignored those instincts and pressed on, embracing complete dumbassery in a way that probably would have made Duke proud. I entered the mine, shotgun clutched tightly in my hands, and I hoped like hell that I was going to come out alive. The silence around me was almost oppressive, and I noticed the faint smell of decay in the air. Tom Hanks had likely dragged some of his prey into this mine. "Duke," I called out, almost against my better judgment. There was no reply, and I didn't call out again. I heard no other sounds. No movement, no voices, no gunshots. Nothing. This place was dead silent, and with every step I took into that mine, I felt more and more like I was trespassing. I could sense eyes watching me, even though I could not see them. My bravery was very quickly fading, and common sense was taking over. I should not have come in here. "Duke," a voice said softly, and I froze. I looked back towards the entrance of the mine, which was little more than a dim square in the distance behind me. "You need me." I heard movement, and I knew I wasn't alone. I held the shotgun at the ready, listening for more sounds, but all I could hear was my heart racing in my ears. This was a bad idea. A very, very, very bad idea. Why the hell did I go in here? Why the hell did I go after Duke? You need me. A shadow passed in front of the dim square of light behind me, and I felt my heart seize in my chest. I ducked into a side passage and backed up, keeping my gun at the ready for when the creature came for me. And as I did, I felt my foot connect with something. I paused and looked down, only to see a blood-soaked cowboy hat laying a few feet away from a shape that looked an awful lot like a body. Oh good, I found Duke. Most of Duke, at least. And that was when it dawned on me that it probably hadn't been a coincidence that I just found him. I'd only gone into this passage because the creature I'd been hunting, a creature that up until now had been dead silent, and had only just now revealed that it could fucking vocalize, was seemingly standing between me and the exit. The very same creature that had probably killed Duke. I looked past Duke's body, into the darkness of the mine, and that was when I noticed movement along the ceiling, creeping around the corner of another tunnel that was connected to the one I was in. Son of a bitch. He was trying to flank me. Tom Hanks' eyes fixated on me. It knew that I saw it, and I thought I could see an all-too-human flash of rage in its eyes. Its brow furrowed as it let out a snake-like hiss, before lunging at me. I fired at it without thinking. The shotgun blast knocked it away and sent it crashing to the ground, but it didn't stun it for long. This thing was back up on its feet mere seconds later, and coming for me again. I know Parsons wanted Tom Hanks alive, but when the nightmare clone of Sheriff Woody is charging at you with murderous intent, and you're holding a shotgun, it's only natural to unload several rounds of buckshot into its face. Not because you want to, but because he's gonna eat your head if you don't. Tom Hanks kept racing for me, although his legs buckled beneath him, and I only barely got out of the way in time before watching him crash to the ground, writhing violently as he struggled to stand again. His face looked damn near shredded by the buckshot. I could see bone beneath his broken skin, but he was still alive. He was still standing. He was still fighting, and I could see him shaking off his injuries like they were nothing at all. Something in my gut told me that if I wanted this Tom Hanks Chimera dead, it would take more shotgun shells than I had on me. And on top of that, it was very obvious at this point that the tranquilizer hadn't worked. He didn't seem to have slowed down at all. Tom Hanks snarled at me, eyes fixating on me again. Or maybe it would be more accurate to say, eye. One of them had been destroyed by the several shotgun blasts he'd just taken to the face. His tail swished angrily, and, thinking fast, I aimed my next two shots at his back legs. I knew they wouldn't kill him, but I hoped they might slow him down enough so I could run. With Tom Hanks injured, I put two more shells into his torso, before turning and sprinting for the entrance of the mine as fast as I could. You need me, Tom Hanks growled, repeating some words he must have heard a long, long time ago. I could hear him coming after me, but I'd been right. Shooting his back legs had slowed him down enough for me to outrun him, if only for a little while. I burst out of the mine, sprinting as fast as my legs could carry me, and I could hear Tom Hanks gaining on me. I could hear his ragged breaths and knew that in just a few short seconds, I'd feel his claws. All I could do was pray that Oak could get a shot. I heard a loud buzzing noise behind me, and dared to look back to see what new nightmare was coming for me. And I wasn't disappointed to see that, apparently, those insectoid wings on Tom Hanks' back weren't just for show. He could in fact fly, and he was using that to close the distance between us. Mauled by a lion-insect hybrid of Tom Hanks? At least my death was going to be interesting. I heard the distant crack of a rifle and saw Tom Hanks shift in the air. And as he bore down on me, I raised the shotgun and squeezed off one final blast into his midsection, earning a cry of pain from him as he crashed back down to earth. The rifle fired again, and I know that Oak hit Tom Hanks dead on. He howled like an animal before trying to come for me again, and I unleashed another round of buckshot into one of his forelimbs, watching as it buckled beneath him. Oak fired a third time, then a fourth. I could see the darts jutting out of Tom Hanks' side. He was slowing down. His breath came in heavy pants, and with his one good eye, I noticed him watching me, reconsidering if I was worth attacking. Finally, he tried to retreat, but this time it was too late. Oak kept firing, pumping dart after dart into it until it finally dropped. Then, all was silent. I kept my shotgun trained on it. I wasn't sure how many rounds I had left, if any, but it made me feel better to have the gun on it until Oak made her way to me. "Is it dead?" she asked. "With all those tranq rounds and shotgun shells we put into it, I can't imagine how it'd still be alive," I replied. Oak nodded, but kept staring at it. She took a timid step closer to inspect it. "Still breathing," she finally said, before looking over at me. "This damn thing's still breathing." "Should we change that?" I asked. "Use the last of our ammo?" No, this is good. Parsons wanted it alive." "Yeah, he did. But we just watched this thing take several shotgun blasts standing, and shrug off God only knows how many tranquilizer rounds. You really sure we ought to be bringing it in alive?" "Those were Grandmaster Parsons' orders," Oak said. "You don't defy a Grand Master. Parsons doesn't know what this thing can do. If we make it clear, orders are orders," Oak said again. "We'll keep it down for the count until help arrives. Then we ship it out. That's the job." There was a finality in her voice that I didn't like. Her stare was intense, and I almost wondered if she might just shoot me if I kept arguing with her. So, I let her have this one. For now. A truck arrived to collect Tom Hanks about a half hour later. I watched as the men on the truck gave him some extra sedation before moving him onto the truck to poke and prod at him. I saw them take a blood sample, and while they did that, we sat back with Lucas and watched. "Admirable work," he said, as he sat quietly on a chair that someone had brought for him. His oxygen tank rested by his feet. "Dr. Parsons is going to be very satisfied with this, even if you did need to rough it up a little. Just make sure he knows what we needed to do to take it down," I said. "I don't know if it's a good idea letting that thing live." "That decision is up to Dr. Parsons, not us," Lucas replied. "Speaking of Dr. Parsons, we have another job. Vermont this time." "That was fast," I said. "For us, maybe. Dr. Parsons admittedly has quite the laundry list of targets to clean up. We'll be busy for some time." I nodded as my phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out to look at it and saw another text from Gary. "Hope work's going okay. I know you're really busy, but just wanted to know you're alright." I almost ignored it, but figured that the least I could do was text him back. "Yeah, crazy busy lately, sorry. In Vermont next, but we should still try and do something." He responded with a little heart icon that made me a lot happier than it should have. I know that the brethren wouldn't really approve of me talking to him, nor would they approve of my visit to him before I left San Francisco. But, well, I'm only human. "So, Vermont?" I asked, pocketing my phone and looking over at Lucas. "What's the target this time?" Addendum 2. Little tin soldier, marching when you wind his key. I can't say I'm surprised. And I can't say I'm disappointed either. This may possibly be a best-case scenario. Possibly. More data is needed. Dr. Saunders had mixed feelings when I shared with her the latest casualty in Parsons' little cleanup operation. On one hand, I recognize that she feels a responsibility to her creation. In many ways, she still loves it. And I could see the shameful relief on her face when I told her that he was still alive. On the other hand, she also understands that the child she raised in that lab is gone, and whatever remains is something else entirely. I know that she would have preferred if they killed it. Either way, her shared history with that particular creature is not what's important. What's important is the question that she asked me. How will we protect our own going forward? I have yet to determine a satisfactory answer to that. For now, my interest is only in observing this cleanup operation. But I also have to take precautions. I've advised Saunders to look for places to relocate the subjects in our care. While I would prefer it not come to that, their safety must take precedence over what is convenient for our research. This Dr. Parsons, I've yet to determine what it is he seeks to accomplish. But I already know that it is not something I can allow.
Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/JordanGroupeHorror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward. And if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you, which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.